Hi, I'm Russell of Martindale Windows and Developments Limited. I'm a member of Expert Trades and I'm here today to do a review for Tool Talk. So the tool I'm going to review today is the Festool rail saw and along with it the Hoover. Basically the setup that we use for ripping down any sheet material, worktops, several different any length cuts that we do. We use this bit of kit. It's great. Interior doors, sheet material for wet room floors, any slight angles and gradients. It's excellent. We recommend using it with the Festool Hoover. This is the MIDI Hoover. There's one slightly smaller and a bigger one for workshop use, but this tends to do us for the majority of our jobs. You can buy the saw separately from the rail as well, but again, this is kind of pointless without it. Yeah, you can buy them bit by bit, but once you've got the rails, you can use it for for all sorts. So basically, the Hoover comes with its extraction nozzle, which will fit every Festool available. Power cable was a good 2.4, I think, so that is really handy because we all know when we get on site there's always a plug socket miles away, and we do use our extension leads, but I'll be honest with you, when I use this, very rarely need an extension lead, which again is handy. It's handy again. Now the settings for the saw, for the Hoover, once you've got the bit of kit plugged in, which I'll drop the Hoover to one side a sec. Once you've got your Hoover plugged into the tool, it's very hard for that to come out. There is a sleeve which the guys have got on site at the moment, and what we tend to do is put the sleeve over this, because you do find on the edge of the material this cord on the Hoover, it can snag on the work, which when we're cutting oak, it just slows the blade down in its travel, and can cause a bit of burning on the actual work. Similar sort of thing you get when the blade isn't sharp enough, but if you're running it in constantly, it will just heat the material up and discolour it. So there is a sleeve to go over that, which we don't have, but it's available from Festool. It's really good. We recommend that as well. It's a really handy bit of kit. And once you wedge these in, very hard for it to come out, which is ideal because I've used them in the past and they just constantly fall out, drive you bonkers. On the Hoover itself, if I can turn this around, the tool plugs in here. Again, just little touches like the dust flaps just stops anything getting in there, which is why they last so long and why we like to use them. The speed settings on the Hoover itself, and the manual, and then constantly off, and then automatic. So manual, off, automatic. Automatic, the Hoover only starts up when the saw's triggered, when the tool's triggered. So as soon as it starts up, the Hoover starts up, and the Hoover continues for about 5 to 10 seconds after the trigger's been released. So it just doesn't waste electricity really. But you can have it on constantly and can use it as a normal Hoover. The bags are changeable in here. They tend to last us a couple of weeks before we need to change them. Yeah, really good bits of kit. So that's the Hoover, which obviously does act like an extension lead. You plug your tool into there, and it doesn't have to be a Festool tool. You can get adapters for the nozzle to fit another tool. Once you plug that tool into here, once that tool's triggered into the Hoover, that's the only time it sucks if it's on auto. So it doesn't have to be a Festool product. Now the power for the Festool product, these are interchangeable between every tool that's available for Festool. So you can I'll leave this tool in here, I'll use it for the rail saw, then I unplug the rail saw and I'll plug in the router. This connects to the router, the power connects to it, everything's interchangeable, same for my jigsaw, and so on and so on. So really handy bit of kit. Just pushes in, twist to lock into place so it can't come out, twist anti-clockwise. Just really clever. Never seen that on any other tool before. The settings on the saw, we can dip it right down. It's called a TS55, so you can dip it down to 55 millimeters. You can use this setting to set your depth for your material, allowing 6 millimeters for your rails. Again, quick release for the actual use of the saw. So you have to engage the thumb lock in order for the tool to engage, if you like. And if I do it on the side of here, you'll probably see a little better. But once the thumb's engaged, the saw will then drop down to the depth that you've set it. So if I want to adjust that to the maximum depth, you should be able to see that on the side there. A little guide at the back to stop the work pinching up behind the saw, which just gives for a much neater cut. Guidelines here where the saw ends. So if you're cutting blind and you lean over and you want to see where it is, it's a great bit of kit for that. There's also what I call fast fix for changing the blade on the saw. Once you release this, it should allow you to get the saw into a position. So if you probably may or may not have heard it click now. It's fixed in a position where the saw cannot engage by the trigger. The trigger's locked, so it can't possibly start up while you're changing the blade. And the Allen key for it, it's just in the handle here. And keeps in there pretty neatly whilst you use it. As you can see, it's very hard to get out. So it's not easily going to fall out. And that allows you to change your blade nice and safely. Speed control on the back. It will tilt as well for your 45s or slight degrees, like on ply wet room floors. We use them a lot for. And yeah, just a great bit of kit. I would recommend this tool any day. Next onto the rail itself, without the hoover attached. So the rails come at, I think they're 1400 long. They can be used like this for cutting 8x4 sheets across. You cross your 1200s. This is a great bit of kit for that. Just got to be careful which side you put the saw on itself. As I've quickly learned, if you put it on the cut side, the saw's going to fall off with the offcut. So we all make mistakes. And I only made it once. So these can be joined together to create a 2.8. So if you want to cut a 2.4 length, the 8x4 down lengthways, I tend to store them in here so they don't get lost. They're just a slot-headed screw, which apply pressure and lock the two plates together. So I've got one on the bottom, and there's one in the top rail as well, which you can see on this one here. That's the other joining plate. So once these two are together, as you can see, it's very hard to push these across. These have got a foam rubber on the bottom, and they do come with clamps, so you can clamp it to the work. But if the work is relatively dust-free, as you can see, it's very hard to push that along or move it in any direction. So I haven't had to use a clamp as yet, and it hasn't moved on me before. I've seen one move before, but the guy using it didn't have a hoover, and the work was getting absolutely covered in dust, and that's why, without having a hoover. But to be honest with you, we cut with that 9 times out of 10 inside people's property, and we don't get a problem with dust. That's how powerful they are. And once this is jointed together, the saw will just literally glide along the work effortlessly. And even on these, you can cut sort of face side up with the rotation. You actually get a neater cut with your face side up on these because of there's like a plastic flange, which when you first get them, it'll come oversized and it cuts with the saw. So you actually have to do your first training cut and trim it off. But once that's down and the weight of the saw on top, it applies pressure to the work, the laminate, whatever it is you're cutting. And it'll just allow you to sort of glide straight through and cut a perfect line every time. We've had this tool for probably 5 years now. We did have a substitute before, which cost about 1/5 of the cost of this. But you get what you pay for, and it's far better than any tool we've ever used in its league, if you like. So yeah, I definitely recommend this tool.